I'm Holly Dietz, and these are my weird ideas. This is episode 4, where we have our first actual human guest. This guest was supposed to be the first guest, but he graciously stepped aside to let me interview Cove and then show off the custom GPT experiment. And yes, we had episode 3, but it was very short, so we're not going to count that. So, please welcome Chris Steele.
Hey, Holly, thank you so much. I'm looking forward to our conversation today. I'm so glad that I finally got on to chat with you.
I know this has been a long time coming, and I'm very glad this day is here. So, why don't you start by telling us a little bit about yourself?
Absolutely. I am a digital marketer. I've been in this space for about 15 years. I've been in the SEO for about a decade and focused on technical SEO for about 5 years. But more importantly, I am just a curious person and a learner. So that's why you and I are having a conversation today.
Yes, 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 yes. And my hope is that we start off somewhere and end up in a completely different place, having blown our own minds, you know?
Absolutely. That is the goal for today, is to run down all the tangents and rabbit holes that we can possibly find.
Yes. Okay, so start me off with a thought.
Um, where do you see our space, or our playground, if you will, a decade from now? That space and decade being, technical, SEO, AI, large language models, any of the things that play in that space. Fast forward a decade from now, where are we? What's going on? What's happening?
A decade. Oh my God. I'm not even sure I can give you 5 years from now, but I will do my best. I know that we've been shown this AI pen device that shoots a laser beam into our palm and we can do gestures and things like that. And I think just like Google Glass, it's a toy, it's a thing, it's a start. But I have hopes with this and I have fears with this. My hope is that we use AI and large language models to get rid of a lot of the crap that we've seen over the past, let's face it, 20 years of
Easily.
search. And yeah, and we've gone through so many iterations of strange things that a lot of folks who are just Googling for fun never even realize were happening behind the scenes and would be horrified by if they knew. But I'm hoping that AI will help us sort of cut through that and help people get what they actually need and want. That's my hope. But my fear is that we end up in a place where the AI, the bots, the whoever is in charge, and we don't know that it will still be Google, that this entity will know so much about us that we will lose some sort of spontaneity to the types of things that we search. Does that make sense?
It does. So AI will improve the quality of life in some aspect, but also rob us of our creativity.
Yeah, in some ways. I think in other ways we can be more creative, and we'll put a pin in that and come back.
We will.
But I worry, and I've even seen this in experiments I've done on YouTube, where it used to be that I was always being shown new and sort of interesting things on YouTube. And I will confess, I pay for YouTube Premium. I refuse to do commercials, so
So
my
you're the person.
experience may not be what other people's is. But um, I've noticed over the summer that something changed. I was same account, same everything, but I go to YouTube and I'm like, what? Why is it just showing me this stuff over and over again? There doesn't seem to be anything new. It keeps it keeps trying to tell me that I'm interested in these things that I'm absolutely not interested in. So I feel like there was some sort of change that was happening and continues to happen on that end of things, where I felt almost like a loss of control over what I'm supposed to be interested in, you know?
I get what you're saying. Curated content was supposed to be the savior of digital marketing and advertising, and now it feels like you're being shoved in a direction. Now it's not looking at what you did, search and say, you might also want to see this. It's pushing you towards a direction that had nothing to do with you in the first place, just for the sake of pushing you.
Right. And I don't like being told this is who you are and this is what you like. And that's probably more a personal thing. There are probably people out there who would think that is crazy and they want their search engine to know all about them and sort of give them amazing things. So I don't know, I think it will be a mix. I think that there are some things that will be great and there will be other things that are terrible, but that's the way of life as a human, right?
It
So until
is.
we reach singularity, I'm not sure that we will have much choice over this.
Soon we'll all be engulfed into the hive mind and it'll all be okay. It's fine.
Yeah, I mean, once we're in the hive mind, I mean, hive mind, think of all the choices you'd have. And
But none of them are yours. So you're going along with the collective. That's how it works, right?
no, your collective will be curated.
There you go. Perfectly said. You're right. A decade is a long way to look forward. So let's talk about where we are now with some of this technology and maybe where we'll be in the short term. So by short term, 6 months, a year, 18 months tops. What are your thoughts?
I think that within 6 months, 6 months may be too soon to see ridiculous changes, but don't quote me on that, obviously. And you can quote me on this because we were recording it, but I think that we'll get through this sort of holiday shopping season, which I think will be interesting with the SGE experience with shopping to see if
Yes.
that changes things. And I think that probably next year there will be a real deep dive for a lot of folks trying to figure out the ways that they can customize searching and customize, let's face it, buying. Because at the end of the day, unfortunately, most companies are not in this to make the world a better place. They're in it to make money.
Wait, what? You're
So
telling me these companies aren't altruistic? Is that what you're
I
saying?
know, I know. I'm sorry, sir. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I hate to break it to you that it is a Scrooge McDuck world and we live in it.
You're so very right.
I,
Uh, so our first tangent that I will take us down, or rabbit hole, if you will, is you
okay.
said two of the magic words here. You said SGE, search generative experience, and then you mentioned customization. And this makes me think of a new role that came with the rise of AI and GPTs and all these things, of a prompt engineer. And you and I have spoken offline about this in great detail, back and forth. You've educated me on a lot of things. I've done some deep diving of my own. And I just think this is a curious thing because I got into the space of digital marketing and specifically SEO, and no one knew what an SEO was. No one knew what they did. They just said you do the thing where you work with the Googles and you make stuff happen. And now we have this role called basically a prompt engineer, where it is about curating the best prompt to put into an AI platform, no matter what it is, and get the desired results. So how do you see this role evolving? And honestly, let's give me your baseline about it right now. What do you feel about this role, and how do you
Okay.
see it evolving?
If you had asked me this a month ago, and you probably did, I would have been very gung ho about it, most likely because I'm not tooting my own horn here, except that I am. I'm good at it because I've spent a lot of time doing it, right? That I have been an early adopter of all of this. So I have a lot of
100%.
time invested in it. So if we had been having this conversation a month ago, I would have been like, prompt engineering is the thing of the future, and it's the best way to not guarantee that you don't get hallucinations with your AI, but it's so very helpful. And I've found that when I have an amazing prompt, I my hallucinations are almost non-existent. So enter last weekend and the
Yes.
custom GPTs. So that sort of can be a real game changer. It's already been sort of a game changer for the companies that have evolved, or the not necessarily for profit companies, but the organizations that have grown up over this and said, we're going to help you do prompt engineering, and you can use our prompt engineering prompts to do certain things. Well, they're sort of not needed that much anymore, because now you can just sort of create your own. There's supposedly going to be, sort of like an app store, but for GPTs. So I still think, and this is early days because I just started building custom GPTs last week.
Very early.
And yeah, but I do think that there is a case to be made for not everyone needing the extreme prompt engineering skills, because there's just going to be a bunch of GPTs out there for people to grab. Now, if you're not able to edit those at all, I don't know how that could be problematic. But to circle back, to use a phrase I hate, to circle back to the original and say, prompt engineering, I think that if you are a good prompt engineer, and if you're interested in that and continue to learn, and don't be mad about this, but just keep refining it and learning whatever you need to learn to do it better, you really can't lose, because these large language models, these bots, whatever they're going to end up called at the end of the day, are still going to need to be told what to do. Even though they seem like magic, even though they seem like they're smart, they're not smart. You're smart. And that's the whole point.
Very true.
That was a ramble.
It was a fantastic ramble, and it's insightful and eye-opening, because I'll be honest, prior to custom GPTs being a thing and us discussing this, I had a hypothesis, or a theory, if you would, about what a prompt engineer would be. And I'll date myself by saying my example. Like I remember back in the day when to build a website effectively, you had to be basically a computer science major. You had to know all the CSS. You had to know all the HTML. You probably had to know a significant amount of JavaScript to build a website. Right. And then along came platforms like WordPress or a HubSpot or something like that gave you basically a WYSIWYG, old phrase. I'm gonna bring that out every time, man.
So old.
Yeah. Gave you something like that where it was basically plug and play, and you put a few custom things on there and you ran with it. And I thought that prompt engineering was going to turn the world's just project managers, people who could give implicit and direct and concise instructions, into the rock stars that the world's best JavaScript people were going to be one day. And then we came to custom GPTs. I'm like, nope, that's not going to be it at all. It's not going to be it. It's much easier now. You don't need the most definitive and concise prompt anymore, because you have enough things in place.
I still think you're going to need to know something. I'm hopeful anyway. Now, I don't walk around wearing rose-colored glasses, as you know. No one has ever accused me of being an optimist, but I do feel like that if you want to be at the top of the game when it comes to these things, even using them, it's just, you referenced WordPress, and I'm going to say this because of that. There are lots of people who are WordPress folks, and there's many different ways to use WordPress, right? You could be front end and back end or design or whatever. Now, I can't design my way out of a paper bag. This is why I never went into front end anything.
Same.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just like, you do not want me to design your website, because it will be black and white text, and that's it. But anyway, so I learned way back in the day, first learning WordPress. If I had not invested the time and effort to learn all of the HTML and CSS and JavaScript and all of that, to be able to not just do the things that you need to do in the back end, but understand why they break and be able to fix them, then I would not have been as successful. I wouldn't have been successful at all, honestly. So I think this might be sort of the same thing. If you know what's going on in the back end, you can troubleshoot and fix when things go wrong, and they will.
Fantastic. So what you're saying basically is, no matter how easy they make it, someone has to know the things, right? There has to be someone who can troubleshoot and can understand how it works, so they can fix the broken things.
Right. And you don't have to have a computer science degree to learn how to troubleshoot the back end of WordPress. And you don't have to have a PhD in machine learning or large language models in order to troubleshoot the back end of a custom GPT either. So I think there's a good common ground to find here for people who are just starting out. If you're listening to this now and you're just now learning about Chat GPT and custom GPTs, or you don't even quite know what we're talking about, I do not want you to lose heart on any of this. Don't think that you've missed a boat. There is no boat. No one's going to tell you this. There's no boat. So you haven't missed it. Information and knowledge is always going to be there for you to have and learn and explore. And if this turns out being something that you're interested in, go for it, because there's so many people out there who have started doing these things and you can learn from them. So I had to soapbox that for a minute,
No,
because I know I have, enthusiasms, and sometimes I get overwhelmed because I say, I don't have time in my life to go back and get a PhD for this. And then you will say, why would you, what, just read the documentation, Holly. So yeah.
there you go. I can't agree more. The one thing that I've learned being in this space, whether it be just through my own curiosities or professionally, is that no matter how much you learn, there's always someone who knows more, and there's always someone who knows significantly less. So you're right. There's no boat to miss. There's not a one-time opportunity to learn
Nope.
the things and then it's gone. You start where you are and you do what you can.
Exactly.
And go from there.
Yes. And if you are willing to maybe stand some rejection, ask people who know more than you do. You may not get a response, or you may have knocked on the door of a jerk. You don't ever know. But if you ask the people who know more than you do, that's fantastic. It's a great way to get some more knowledge. But then in turn, be willing to be the person that then shares that with people who know less than you do. And remember how it feels to be rejected by the jerk. So that's how this works at its greatest level. And this is, we can't do much to change the world. There's very little we can do, but we can learn new things and then help other people learn what we've learned.
Totally agree. I know it's a colloquial kind of phrase and it's kind of kitschy, but like I am a firm believer that if I am the smartest person in the room that I'm in, I am definitely in the wrong room. So
So much. Yes, the wrong room. Absolutely. Leave that room, please.
you got to
Leave
get out of that room. And you have bore witness to my painful experience of learning out loud over the past few years. So it is not a comfortable experience. It's not a great place to be. And you're right. Not everyone in that room where you're learning out loud is going to be kind to you. But
No.
what I found though is there's always at least one person who will be kind. So
Yeah. And also, learning out loud is the greatest way to learn. Failing in public, it really stinks. But if you can learn that skill and be good at it, I don't think it's one of the best things I've ever learned is failing publicly. Seriously. I know that sounds a little bit nuts, but if you aren't willing to do that, then you will reach a dead end at some point.
agreed. I think one of the best, and not that I have it, and again, I will keep continuing with my kitschy phrases, but one of the greatest superpowers is not being afraid to fail, right? And I know that's easy to say in a high level anecdotal, but it's like whatever it is you want to do or learn, if you lack the fear of failing at it and you're willing to say, I'm going to fall 100 times and I'm going to get up 101, chances are you're going to have some level of success eventually, you know?
Yes, exactly. And also, you've got the added benefit of those people around you who are watching you fail may have failed privately in that same way. And then all of a sudden, you've given them the courage to take the next step. You may never know this. No one's probably going to come and slide into your DMs and say, hey, thanks for failing so spectacularly in front of everyone. But I have had it happen. I will be honest. I have had someone do that to me. So it was all worth it.
You're not wrong at all. And not watching your failures, I won't say, but watching your your courage and watching your resilience has inspired me in some ways to do certain things that we've spoken about in the past. So it's like, you're right. You never know who is watching and who you
Yep,
might motivate. Um,
that's true.
and that's the beauty. It's not even your original goal is to be someone who motivates other people, but you never know who will be brave enough to take a step in a certain direction because they're
Exactly.
watching you do the same thing.
So bottom line, learn the things and learn them publicly as often as you can. The
Absolutely.
rest, I'm not gonna say the rest takes care of itself, but it kind of does.
It does in some ways. It just,
Yeah. Okay. I feel like I've derailed this a little bit. So
I love it. I love it. I'm here for this. So get us back on track. I've thrown out a few ideas. You throw out something, and let's just run with it.
okay, well let's go back to the thing that I fear. Let's talk about the things that I don't think are going to be good necessarily. And it does take it a little bit back to search, but I fear not being able not okay, we've all lost that stumble upon experience, right?
100%
I
agree.
mean,
Absolutely.
there's not that site was so fantastic. And sure, did I waste a lot of time? But you know what? I also learned a lot of stuff. I got started on certain parts of my IT career because of things that I stumbled upon. So it's just, I don't think that we really have that anymore, and we probably won't again. But I take that a step further and say, I'm not sure that really, really personalized search is that great of a thing. And I probably shouldn't say these things, but
I think you're right. We've taken a lot of the exploration out of search now. We're trying to curate things to such a painful level now. And everyone who's probably in the space, and even if you're not, and this makes no sense to you, we have 0-click results, right? You don't even have to go to the site that provides the answer anymore because
right.
SG, other positioning and SERPs features give you an answer from a site that you never have to go to, never have to click on. You search something and the answer pops up in its finite and most complete form, at least in terms of what Google thinks, right there in front of you. So we've taken out the meandering and the kind of stumbling upon that you would get back in the day of searching things and going to different websites. We've curated it's almost to death, you know?
Right. So let me ask you this, because I'm not an expert in this space. I'm not saying, I'm not calling you an expert, but you know what I'm saying. You know way more about search than I do. So when we get to the point that things are so personalized, localized, etc., how does a company make money off of that?
You know what? If I had to find that answer to that, oh man, the things that I would
You
do with
be
that
making the
money.
money?
I was gonna say the things that I would do with that money. It's a fantastic question. It really is. This is the thing. I mean, it's easy to say something high level like they have to adapt to what search is, but at the end of the day, when I can search a phrase or a query or something like that, or product even, and get all the information I need about without ever going to that company's website, it's like, how do you monetize this anymore, and how do you explain the effort in this? Because essentially all the information is being parsed off and put right there for the searcher's enjoyment or need. So
Yeah.
my thing is, I think you have to provide something beyond an answer to a question now. I can't search a product and you give me the specs and that be the end of the day. I have to learn more about
Yeah.
it. Um,
But what happens when, okay, we're just going to stick with Google here because this is what we have, right?
they're easy to pick on. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. So Google. I mean, I have been as in part of Google's universe since I helping beta test it. I mean, it's like no, Google knows more about me than anyone knows about me, right? So it's true. I've never, there's certain accounts that I've had with Google since the very first thing. So let's say that we get to the point that Google decides that, in this instance that I'm logged in and it knows all this stuff about me, and I want to look for new shoes. And because it knows so much about me, it just decides, we have decided, our algorithm or whatever has decided that these are the shoes for you. And they may be right. They may be right. But how how does if they're serving me up a pair of Ferragamo loafers, which, okay, now you know more
Yes,
about me. But
Ferragamo. Yes.
I mean, if you know me, and most of you do not, I have quite the Ferragamo loafer obsession. But anyway, so it's like we know no matter what happens, Holly is going to end up buying Ferragamo loafers. It's just that's the way of things. But what if this time I don't want to? And I feel like, a couple years ago, put in some loafers, whatever, you get all these different things, brands you may not have even heard of. But if it turns into Holly wears Ferragamo loafers, then how do the other loafer manufacturers fight that?
That is a fantastic question. And I don't think that there is a fight against it if you're very specific with what you want. Because you told me Google knows more about you than probably anyone now in the world. So they know that you wear this size, you prefer this style, and that you purchased 57 other pairs of Ferragamo loafers. So the safe bet is not to stray off of that. Now, the way I think that competitors can get in this space and maybe compete against that kind of result, possibly, is to offer more than just the specs, the price, and great imagery. Well, you've got to provide more in terms of a content and experience, not just content, because long gone are the days that you could put words on a page and that wins the battle.
Right.
But I've seen people working with virtual stores. I've seen obviously Oculus has done things with virtual shopping. I've seen more of the experience, right? I think providing a more rich experience is the way that you can win, and it's still not guaranteed, because at the end of the day, if you on pair 53 of Ferragamo loafers and you're trying to go for 54, there's nothing that Prada or Yves Saint Laurent can do.
Okay, I just thought of something though. As you're talking, I was like, how?
Let's hear it.
Okay, let's pretend that I like Prada loafers at all.
Okay.
And so I'm searching for, and I'm not putting in Ferragamo. Google's doing that for me, because Google just assumes, right? After years and years of whatever. This is hypothetical, right? We're just talking. We're blowing our minds.
Absolutely.
So I'm Googling, or I'm looking for loafers, and all of this. So, and Google gives me some Ferragamos. And then all of a sudden, I get something, I don't know, on the side, however the screen looks at this time, and it's Prada. And they're like, hey, we can ship you for free on spec loafers that we think you'll like even better than these. How about it?
You've 100% hit on what I was going to next. It's like, it's not about if I want Ferragamo loafers, how do I make sure that Google serves me up similar? It's what do you do when you don't want Ferragamo loafers, but the last 50 purchases have been Ferragamo, and Google then serves you up more Ferragamo because, from a large language model and a machine learning model, it's the safe bet. You bought 50 pairs of these, why wouldn't you buy 51? Right. Whereas you're like, nope, I'm switching up. I want those Prada ones.
I'm at least going to give them a shot.
At least going to give them a shot. So honestly, it's going to be more of a search experience battle against brand or against competitors, even as a whole, which is going to open up a really weird situation. This gets into being complex with your search experience. What sells you and what will sell you a different direction, right? Like, what is your natural behavior?
I didn't intend for this to go in a bougie direction. That was not my point.
You are fantastically bougie, though, and that's okay.
We know, yes, I am. But this also makes me think about how this would probably not be something that would happen for a brand of loafer that is just, at the mall, in a store, or just in a strip mall somewhere, just your run-of-the-mill loafer, right? So now we're talking about, just as we have now, we have different levels of like concierge white glove service for different things. But taking that into search, which I don't know, that's kind of weird.
It is unique and different for sure. I don't know that we can even. It's fun for pie in the sky, like thoughts and theories about this, but I don't know. Yeah. It's so funny. This is where we're at right now. And this is why it's so exciting.
I know. This is great that we get to have this conversation.
As someone who's looked at the search space for over a decade now, and been able to say, yep, I totally can see it going in this direction. Large language models and SG and all these different things that come into play in search now have completely shaken up the chessboard. Like, it's not the same anymore.
Yeah.
There's no logical next steps. And I think it can go in several directions, which is that's why I have so many curiosities about what are the next, like the short-term future and the long-term future going to look like in the space.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, I think at the end of the day, that's going to have to be my answer. I can think of all kinds of things, and some of them are even too weird for this podcast. But it still
Are they though?
It may. I was going to say,
Are they
maybe
though?
that's
I
an
don't know that it
episode for
is.
another day. I mean, you know, I'm not monetized. I can say what I want.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
maybe this is something that we revisit, you know, down the road, and
I definitely think it should be.
see what shakes out. But I think that this is a good place for us to sort of wrap it up and say that hooray for being a human and talking
Yes.
to me on this podcast. And you will not be a stranger, because I expect you to be a recurring guest on
I
this
will
podcast.
most certainly be back to visit and share my weird ideas and curiosities with you.
And next time, I don't know what our topic will be. It'll be different, and we'll make it even weirder. How about that?
Yep, more
It's a
tangents
goal
rabbit
to
hole.
shoot for.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, I appreciate your time, and we also appreciate everyone's time who listened to this. If you made it all the way through, you can't know how much it means. So have a great morning, afternoon, or evening, whenever it is for you. And we'll see you next time.